They were mentors and warriors, responsible for preserving traditions passed down from generation to generation. Yet they were victims of persecution that still echoes today. Few official records acknowledge how much these women, the pillars of their communities, were targeted by oppression in the name of colonization and power. It's unsettling to imagine how many cultures were torn apart while their leadership was deliberately erased to reinforce the illusion of European superiority. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to have your freedom taken away while your people struggled to survive? The history of these indigenous women is one of bravery and resistance, but also of tragedies and injustices that many have never heard of. And what stands out the most is that they didn't just overcome these hardships. They left behind teachings so strong that they still guide us today. This is an invitation to look at the past from a different perspective and reflect on the depth of this legacy. The impact of these women goes far beyond what meets the eye, and what was done to them is something we must learn about and acknowledge. In many indigenous communities of the past, women played roles that might surprise us when compared to today's customs. They didn't just handle the daily routines, they also shaped the direction of their villages. In some tribes, councils led by women had the power to elect or remove leaders, proving their strong influence in local politics. On a spiritual level, they were responsible for keeping the connection with the sacred alive and preserving traditions passed down through generations. Among the Iroquois, for example, women held real authority in tribal decisions and were actively listened to on important matters. Beyond leadership and spirituality, they were also deeply involved in raising children and caring for the community as a whole, reinforcing values of cooperation and unity. So here's the question. Did all of this fade away over time, or did it simply take on new forms in our society? Some people believe that indigenous women stayed out of conflicts, but that idea doesn't match reality. They were at the heart of the battles, fighting alongside men and taking on major responsibilities to protect their communities. Even their enemies recognized their courage in critical moments. In 1868, for instance, George Custer's regiment captured around 50 Cheyenne women, an event that shifted the course of the war. This highlights the vital role women played not only in daily life, but also in high-risk situations. It wasn't uncommon to find them acting as strategists, planning ambushes, and leading their troops with skill. Their influence went beyond the battlefield, leaving a legacy that has lasted for generations. Even in times of peace, they were always preparing, ensuring that if a threat arose, they would be ready. For these warriors, fighting wasn't just about defense. It was about preserving their culture, values, and ancestral traditions. Whether on the front lines or safeguarding the identity of their people, their role was crucial to the survival and continuity of indigenous communities. A lot of people think indigenous peoples didn't really worry about personal hygiene, but that idea doesn't do justice to the practices they actually had, especially among women. They made formulas using herbs, oils, and clay to keep their skin clean and protected from the sun and wind. This knowledge was passed down from mother to daughter, reinforcing a tradition that kept both body and environment in balance. On top of their everyday care products, women produced oils from seeds and native plants, creating recipes that were adapted to each season. Well-cared-for skin was seen as a sign of vitality and also helped prevent illnesses, something that caught the eye of the colonizers. More than just a concern with looks, this kind of care deepened their connection to the land and supported the health of the whole community. They also paid close attention to their hair, styling it and adding adornments that highlighted each woman's individuality. Combs made of bone or wood kept strands in place, showing how important it was to balance function and beauty. In this context, looking after one's body wasn't just about appearance. It was a way to honor their ancestry and strengthen communal bonds. In indigenous cultures, family was at the heart of community life, and women played a key role in keeping those connections strong. Marriages could be monogamous or polygamous, often arranged based on alliances and collective interests. Still, each woman had the freedom to end the relationship if she felt it was necessary, since divorce was accepted whenever balance was lost. This kind of autonomy stood out as a sign of equality, which contrasted with the norms brought by colonial societies. On a day-to-day basis, Women guided routines and kept traditions alive by teaching kids the tribe's customs and beliefs. In many cases, several families lived under the same roof, building strong bonds of solidarity and ensuring mutual support. This setup allowed cultural knowledge to pass naturally between generations, keeping traditions vibrant and intact. Rituals around marriage and family life were rich with meaning, celebrated through gift-giving and songs that reinforced unity. With their prominent role in these traditions, women became central figures in the community, showing just how much these societies acknowledged and honored the female role in many aspects of daily life. In many indigenous communities, people made their living through collective activities, always in tune with the environment. In this context, women played a key role by growing food, gathering medicinal plants, and crafting various items, ensuring both the group's survival and its development. Their involvement earned them respect and recognition, reinforced by traditions that shaped tribal organization. Some groups even had temporary marriages to strengthen economic agreements, showing their ability to balance personal and collective interests. Motherhood, meanwhile, followed rules intended to keep the population balanced and ensure everyone's well-being. One common practice was spacing children about 4 years apart, giving women the chance to fully recover and focus on each child. This birth control was naturally based, often relying on herbs with contraceptive effects. This balance between economic management and motherhood highlighted the idea that women were the foundation of their tribe's cultural and material continuity. They didn't just bring new lives into the world, they also supported the community's social and productive structures. In doing so, they combined practical and symbolic elements, creating a continuous cycle that preserved both life and tradition. Have you ever wondered how indigenous women were viewed in different tribes in the past? In many places, they held important roles, but that didn't mean they always had the same rights everywhere. Some tribes let them choose leaders, while others kept them out of big decisions, limiting them to household and subsistence tasks. This variation reflects the cultural diversity among over 2,200 groups that live side by side, each with its own rules and values. Community norms grew out of both the environment and the need to survive. In some societies, women were expected to take care of children and the home, while men went hunting or took part in conflicts. Even so, these boundaries didn't take away from women's importance. They often preserved and passed down ancestral knowledge, even if they couldn't always join in certain collective decisions. Over time, many of these tribes either disappeared or changed, taking their traditions and contradictions with them, which then faded or shifted in new directions. The contrast between freedom and restriction that many women experienced reminds us of the many different layers that make up any society. Despite the challenges, women's roles remained essential to keeping their peoples united and ensuring continuity, helping maintain balance as everything around them evolved. Share these stories, talk about them, and don't let such important voices fade away. If what you've heard so far makes sense, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We'll keep bringing you accounts that deserve to be heard and ideas that can open new doors. After all, any real change begins with the quest for knowledge, and the next step is in your hands. Ready to keep going together on this journey?